Everything is fine here on Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, joined by Dustin, here to talk some Star Wars, specifically Bad Batch. So we've got some more episode drops that we're going to be looking to talk through and kind of review. So, spoiler alert. I mean, we're a little behind for episode 9, so probably don't need a spoiler tag on that one. But two more episodes dropped today. So episode 10, Identity Crisis, and episode 11, Point of No Return. So if you haven't watched those, put us on pause, go watch them, and then come back and listen to us. So there will be spoilers for those episodes as we will talk through those. And oh my gosh, at one point we're just waiting for any sort of content to come through. And now, because we missed last week, we have 3 episodes to cover in one of our episodes. So
My code name is the Note Taker. Can't, can't really see the notebook. There it is.
there it is. I'm so proud of you, Dustin. I'm
I
so
took
proud.
notes, I feel like it'll help me remember. Although I got some things to get off my chest.
Oh, a little teaser there. I like it. I'm assuming you'll bring those up as we're kind of talking through each episode, because we'll go through each one, but we'll try to break through them pretty quickly because we have 3 episodes to go through.
Yeah, I
But
don't think we have to do like a scene by scene breakdown.
right.
I wrote like just short thoughts as they kind of came. I didn't longhand too much, so yeah, they're pretty short and fleeting thoughts, which is the story of my life.
And I excuse my coughing. That was why we didn't record last week. So I've been sick. I swear I've been sick ever since my son went to daycare, but I've been coughing quite a bit, and I
It'll get
didn't.
better and then it'll get worse again and then
Right.
better.
Well, I'm assuming it's usually the worst, like anytime season changes. So winter is probably pretty bad, and then probably the fall might get a little bad too.
Yeah, and I think too as they move up in classrooms, it just because there's different petri dishes in each classroom.
That's fair. But yeah, I mean, it was like I'm coughing, at least previously. Last week, I was coughing every 30 seconds, if not more frequently. So it's like, that's a lot of work to go back and post and edit all that. So figured we would just combine it with this week. So, um, and you have a shout out, don't you?
What's that?
You have a shout out that you want to make, don't you?
Uh, do I?
Right before we jumped on, you said that.
Oh, no. We won't worry about that.
Okay, okay. We'll disregard that. We'll move on. All right. So we'll first speak to episode 9, titled The Harbinger. Is that how you pronounce it? Harbinger?
Harbinger.
Harbinger. What is a harbinger? I
It's
didn't.
like the bearer of bad news, kind of. You're
Oh,
like a bringer of bad things.
okay.
Like I am the
Interesting.
harbinger of your destruction.
Good to know. I didn't look
I,
that
I
up.
I remember this term because that was the name of one of the bad guys in Mass Effect.
Okay.
His name was the Harbinger.
Okay. Very cool. Well, now that
Really great video game series.
kind of makes sense with this episode. Um,
I
so
think Harbinger was actually one of the name of the Reavers.
okay.
So anyway, doesn't matter. Still a great villain name.
Yeah. And again, like I said, it makes sense for this episode. So so this episode primarily took place on Pabu. So kind of the home island.
Yeah, I wrote that down. That was in my notes. That was the name of the island.
Good job. Because hey, names in Star Wars are tough to remember
Yeah.
because
Yep.
there's so many of them, and a lot of them are a little tricky to pronounce as well. But Pabu. So this one primarily takes place there, where we have, Crosshair, Wrecker, Hunter,
Their
and
vacation home away from home.
right. It's a nice island. I wouldn't mind going there.
Of course, they don't pick any like harsh environments to, that would be a little bit more inconspicuous.
And don't have a car there. It reminds me of Duluth, where all the roads would be inclines and you just destroy your brakes all the time. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
um so in this episode, we have the crew, and um I believe it's Batcher that kind of wanders off, right?
That's in my notes. Says I'm getting really annoyed with Batcher.
You're getting annoyed by Batcher?
That she's become such a, and by the way, it's a she. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I learned that in today's episode, so
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that previously.
It's just she's becoming so integral to the plot. It's kind of annoying. It's like, why are we using this dog to move the story forward? Like she's the one that finds what we're about to talk about next.
Yeah. So Batcher kind of wanders off to a cave, and um, if I recall, you saw this freshly today, so you might be able to refresh in my memory a little better. But did Omega, because Omega went with Batcher, was the ship there? Was
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
She was just sitting there.
The ship was just sitting there, and
Yeah.
then they're kind of looking at it, investigating, and then off to the side, all of a sudden, the one and only Asajj Ventress appears and kind of startles them, and then they kind of cut scene, and we go to Hunter and Crosshair, and they see Batcher kind of like running back and like trying to get their attention, essentially say, "Come here, come here." So they end up following, and they encounter Asajj as well. So pretty cool. I mean, we knew this was coming. We knew Asajj was going to be in this season. She was in the trailer, and this episode really reminded me of the Force, or not the Force Awakens, the Last Jedi. And
I was going to say that too.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
but
the whole, oh, go ahead.
I just want to comment. I just in my notes, I was really disappointed about her introduction. Like it was just like, oh, Fennec sent me.
Yeah.
Like, it just seemed kind of lame to me. By the way, is my volume okay? Because my microphone is a little bit missing.
It's in and out a little bit, but I can hear you. But if you bring it closer,
I moved it closer, so hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just kind of disappointing. Oh yeah, Fennec sent me. Kind of like anticlimactic in my opinion.
Well, and I think we kind of figured that. I think we talked about. Oh wait, I guess it was Greg and I that were on the last one. But that was who we were guessing Fennec Shand was talking to, because they kind of left it up in the air because it was kind of like a muffled, transmission.
Oh, let me check my notes back. No, I don't have them because I.
But we were kind of like debating: is it Cad Bane or is it Asajj? But we're like, I think it's probably more Asajj, only because of the whole Omega question about M count and force sensitivity. Like it just made sense that it would be Asajj, and sure enough, it is her. And she's, I guess, the Harbinger. Is that, if I said that wrong again? I'm sorry, but
Harbinger,
because she's the one that's informing the Bad Batch about the reasons why Omega is kind of being hunted. They discussed the M count, and we got the literal term midichlorians dropped.
I wrote that in my notes. Oh, she said it.
She said the actual M word.
Bitch.
And so then, as Asajj is kind of just talking about this, Omega is like, "Oh, so does that mean like I have a high M count? Am I force sensitive?" And
by the way, I wrote in parentheses when she said midichlorians, we all knew what it was,
right?
Okay. I'm glad she said it because it was kind of stupid to keep calling it M count.
M count.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And like to your point, we all knew it was. You didn't need to beat around the bush. Just say midichlorian, your midichlorian count, because we know what you're talking about. But Asajj Ventress is kind of like, well, that's yet to be determined. If you did have a high M count, then the Empire would definitely be after you. And Omega's like, well, they were already after me no matter what. So, but Asajj Ventress also mentions that you would need training, and that's kind of the direction this episode goes. So,
this is where it loses me.
What?
This is where the episode loses me a little bit.
In the whole training? Is it because Asajj is doing the training?
No.
Is it
because the training is so fucking stupid?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've got 23 minutes
for a little bit with an apple in the head. Oh, what was the second one? Oh, you have to
go get a flower.
She fucking cheated. She rode Batcher, like to me that's kind of cheating, right? And
To
then the
me,
third one was, I don't know, fucking like just reach out to the sea. Anyway, but I did write this down during that training. I got a lot of Karate Kid vibes,
okay.
especially during the fight scene where they're doing little kung fu.
Yeah. No, that's a good correlation. Um,
Like each episode, right, is correlated to something.
yeah.
So
Well, and I was definitely getting Last Jedi vibes when she was talking about like reach out because that's literally
Judge Faith.
I was just envisioning the whole Rey thing, putting her arm out and then Luke slapping her on the wrist with the weed or
Oh, I
whatever.
felt something.
Yeah. Oh, it's the Force. That's it. Um, part of me in the back of my head was thinking that these were all just a ploy. Like, I think the last test was more a legit test. I felt like the first two were more like, kind of weeding her out, and Asajj is kind of assessing the situation between Omega and what the Bad Batch are going to do with Asajj
They
there.
seemed awfully comical.
Yeah. Well, the Bad Batch seemed on edge this whole time. Like Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair. They just didn't trust this situation.
Well, and
Uh
I wrote this down, not to get ahead of ourselves, right?
no,
But
go for it.
you know, another thing that kind of annoys me about the series is how fucking naive Omega is. Just constant naivete going on throughout the episode that pretty much has only got her in trouble, right? And oh, I know, I get it. She's good. She wants to save people. She wants to do what's best for people. Get the clones out of this, Tannis facility. But she's always like, "Oh well, I think Omega's good, and I trust her immediately, even though I know nothing fucking about her." And
So,
then she convinces Hunter, like, "Oh, you got to do what I say. You need to trust me." Anyway, so that was my observation there.
no, that's fair. I look at her as just like a pure optimist. Like I don't think Omega thinks anything bad. Well, maybe not quite to that level because she knows bad things can happen, but yeah, she trusts really easily. Um, but with this situation, I think it is important, excuse me, for Omega to try to figure out, one, are they after her because, she's force sensitive? And I think that would pique interest in Asajj too, because as I was watching this episode, I felt like Asajj still wants to get back at the Empire. And I feel like she's around me. Asajj is around in this situation, waiting for the Empire to arrive. Like she, Omega is Asajj's vehicle to get to the Empire. That's just what I was thinking. Um, because she made it clear that she's not a Jedi, but she also I think she made it clear that she's not on the Empire side on because they're like,
Yeah.
well, whose side are you on? And she's like, my own. So I think she wants some revenge a little bit. So we'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, so her training things, like Dustin said, first one was like that apple balancing. The second one was to go retrieve a flower on the top of the hill before the sun sets. And in this, while she's off doing that, the Bad Batch and Asajj kind of get in this little scuffle. They're
Literal
fighting.
kung fu.
Yeah.
And by the way,
And,
I didn't write this down, but it's kind of part of my like another reason why it reminded me of Karate Kid is because you have the teacher giving the student all these mundane tasks. Wax on, wax off,
yeah.
right? Like it's just that's kind of the parallel I also drew.
Well, and I feel like in a lot of shows recently, they're taking the bad guy from like a previous season. Let's take, you're talking about Karate Kid. Let's take that for an example here. In the Karate Kid show, they took the bad guy kid
Oh, they give him a redemption arc.
and give him a redemption arc.
Yeah.
He becomes the teacher.
Pretty
And now,
soon there's going to be a Harry Potter series where Voldemort is going to have a redemption arc. He's going to come back and
Oh, it's gonna be what's his face?
Sauron,
The blonde haired kid,
Malfoy.
Malfoy. Um, but I feel like that's Asajj's character here. Like she's the bad guy. Now she's become the teacher, sort of, for Omega, and kind of redemption story type of a thing. But so they get in the scuffle. Asajj immediately force pulls their weapons out of their hands. They get into hand-to-hand combat, some knife action in there. But then they're able to get to their weapons again, and then some shooting takes place. But no one ends up killing anyone. Omega, what's that?
So of course not.
Of course, plot armor. So Omega returns, and then that's when they kind of talk about,
what are you guys doing?
Yeah, what's going on here? Stop fighting. Then this is where Omega like tells the Hunter and the crew, like, we need to trust her. There's this final test that we have to take. So Asajj takes Omega out onto a boat, and she talks about
I'm on a boat.
Don't you ever forget. I got my flippy floppies.
Am I Baratheon?
Yeah. I took note of that. Okay, it's a Baratheon. That's that.
I did too. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, if you're
notes
watching,
help. Notes help.
Subtitles really do help because they'll list things out that aren't otherwise known. So I always watch things with subtitles now.
I never did, but as of recent, with like the Star Wars stuff and like taking notes, now I do, and I haven't gone back.
Plus, I'm also like deaf, right? And like if I'm watching something at night,
yeah,
I have to keep the volume down, so I always put on subtitles. So
no, that's fair.
It is distracting in the sense, though, that sometimes I probably miss things like actually in the scene. Also not helpful taking notes.
Right. Well, here's my recommendation. If you have the time, watch through it twice. So the first time you watch it just without taking notes, and then go back and watch it with that knowledge base in your head about what the episode or how that episode transpires, and then you can write the notes. That's what I do. So then this third test is, Asajj is talking about that, excuse me, that anyone with force sensitivity has the ability to connect with the world around them, whether it's creatures or, plants or anything. And
this is very predictable. Like the series of events that take place. I'm just like, we all know how this is going to go.
Sure. And first she summons like these jellyfish squid looking things that glow in the dark, and they're making a circle. And then all of a sudden something else bigger and more dangerous arrives. And Omega's like, did you summon this? And so I was just like,
not on purpose.
Not on purpose. And it's Baratheon thing. And it's this huge creature with like tentacles and everything. And
it's giant squid.
Yep. And to make a long story short, it does grab Omega, but Asajj jumps in the water, cuts the tentacle, frees Omega, brings her back to the boat. And she is able to finally establish like a connection with this thing, so it stops attacking them. So after the Bad Batch get involved at this point, because they're like, okay, they were watching them from afar.
Yeah, they were pissing the creature off more, and then
shooting them.
Stop shooting, and then they're like, we ain't gonna stop shooting. Pew, pew, pew. Okay, fine.
And so then everything gets resolved. They all get back together, and what were they talking about then at the end here?
Yeah, so at the end, Asajj basically says, yeah, she's not special. She's her encounter.
Right.
And then the Bad Batch is like, oh, you're lying.
And she's like, which part?
There's something that happens in the second episode that we'll talk about that I tend to think that she's not lying.
That Omega isn't force sensitive, or that she is force sensitive.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think their intention was still to keep that concept or idea dangling in the back of your mind. Like, is Omega force sensitive, or is she not force sensitive? And
it's what happens in this episode we're about to talk about that I wrote down that I think leads me to believe that maybe she's not force sensitive.
Right. Um,
The last thing I wrote down because I
for
got
episode 9.
episode. Yeah, for Harbinger.
Yeah. Go
If
ahead.
that's it for Asajj, like in the series, that's fucking usually disappointing. You know? Like she just comes and goes to do like a 10-second training montage and then all right, see ya. You know, like
Yeah. It would have been purely cameo fodder that it would have been used
yeah,
for.
it's like it's a cartoon. It's animated. What are we doing cameos for?
Right.
It's like
And
you can't get like a like a cameo. Oh, my microphone fell. Hold on. Technical, please stand by.
please stand by.
Okay.
Microphones have fallen to the ground.
Yeah, so I just that would be I gave the episode a 2 out of 5 in my opinion. Not that we're rating episodes, but that's what I wrote down. It's just a lot of frustrations for me in that episode.
And I have to believe we'll see Asajj again. Um,
I know.
like I
If that's all we see of her.
right. Like I mentioned, I think there's going to be this revenge, or she's out to get the Empire.
But
And
so
like,
how many episodes have there been? 15?
why would they break canon to bring her back just for like a little snippet of an episode? Because it kind of goes against what happened in Dark Disciple, and if I remember correctly, this happens after Dark Disciple. So
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. What there's 16 episodes.
yeah, so we have, and the last 2 get released together. So we have what, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we have four more
Yeah,
Wednesdays.
I mean, and they're pretty short episodes, right? So like, anyway, so that was Harbinger. I I mean, it's good. I also wrote down. I really liked all the Visage Visage dialogue. I love hearing her talk, and using her for exposition is definitely okay with me. And I mean, she said midichlorians, so just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are my notes. So I'm going to move on from the episode.
Awesome. So I think in my opinion, things really picked up with these next 2 episodes. Both of them were released today. So the first one, episode 10, Identity Crisis.
Spoiler alerts officially.
What's that?
Spoiler alerts now since these came out today.
Right. So spoiler tags for this one. We're going to be talking about it. But so this one, we kind of focus in on Tantus, the research facility, get a further understanding of what's taking place here, what Hemlock is doing. It focuses around Emery. So if you recall, it's like the sister of Omega, and she's forced herself into the situation, take over Nalise's responsibilities.
I want to talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Because she was just like, yeah, I think I want to take over. And the guy's just like, yeah, Hemlock's just like, all right. He just gave in so quickly.
Right.
He's like, I should be in charge of this. And he's like, fuck it. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, you're not responsible for the subjects.
Right. Well, and I think he recalls that Emery tried to prevent Omega from leaving. So that to Hemlock was probably enough to be like, all right, you have the best interest of this research facility and what's going on in play. So you have my trust for taking over the responsibilities. And so what comes with that is Hemlock introduces her to everything that Nalise was privy to.
Right?
Well, everything that Nalise was privy to, at least. I don't know, not everything.
Okay, so they never showed like the actual because, and correct me if I'm wrong. And you know what? Actually, you're right. Nalise probably wouldn't have been privy to this. The actual clones, because that's what they showed the Emperor probably is like the actual
right
clones that they're developing. Nalise wouldn't know that, otherwise she'd be telling people.
She would be ringing bells and whistles.
Yeah,
quickly if she knew that. So yeah, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure Hemlock knows about that, but it's probably him and the Emperor, and only a select few that actually have access to that location.
I think before we even get to that point, right? We do the market scene. That's like the very beginning.
Yeah. Yep. That's I think how it starts.
Yeah, and I wrote down clearly the guy standing at the market was a narc.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have to. see him. Like he just, the way he was standing was shady,
Right.
right? Of
You
course,
point him out like a sore thumb, like this guy's bad news.
So the little baby creature thing, I didn't see what that was, what kind of species.
I think it's the same one. If you recall from Rogue One, you remember that little like creature that manned the like artillery gun within
Oh yeah.
the Ewing
Yeah,
that had like the spacesuit. I think it's that same species. It really looks similar, so that'd be my guess.
sure. Well, little baby throws a vase, and they're like, "Whoa, how is that possible?" And then of course the guy tattles.
Yeah,
So that's how the episode starts.
because it giving indication that this kid is force sensitive
Yep.
and or high midichlorian count, I guess, in the purpose of the story. And you knew right away where this was going, that they were going to use this as a vehicle to show further, things going on within the research facility on Tantus. So we then are in the research facility. Hemlock is kind of showing Emery everything, and they go through like this highly secretive location. There's what do they call them? The ray shields. There's tons of ray shields leading up to it.
Yeah.
Heavy guarded.
I wrote down, like, as they're walking through the ray shields, it was great to learn more about Project Necromancer.
Yeah.
We're getting bits and pieces of it. I just love the name Project Necromancer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that Hemlock was, out front with that. He's like, "Well, we're gonna tell you about Project Necromancer," and I think that was more speech to the audience, not just to Emery, but it's also speech to the audience. Yeah, exposition. We're gonna show you more about what's going on in Project Necromancer. But I also got a lot of Mandalorian vibes, where what's his face, the bad guy from Breaking Bad. What's the I want to say Tarkin, but it's not. Even though Tarkin, spoiler alert, did show up in this episode. But who's the main baddie in the Mandalorian? The guy with the dark saber.
Oh, Moff Gideon?
Moff Gideon. Thank you. I got Mandalorian vibes where Moff Gideon has like the troopers that are the Mandalorians that he's creating. That whole facility reminded me of this. But within this facility, there are 3 what they called assets. And again, going back to Mandalorian, that's what they called Grogu. He was the asset. The child was the asset, if you remember. So giving more indication towards that.
I do love how what's his name? Why am I blanking on it now? The guy, Hemlock. He says, because there are so few adults left, because they killed them all.
Yeah. It's all just the children left now as far as they know.
Yeah.
But there's 3 of them here, and they're all alien species. There's 2 young girls and 1 young boy. I like so the girl, what was the girl's name? Eva or something like that. And then the boys was Jax, and then we don't get any indication of the name of the third one. But it's essentially they're just holding them captive, and they're just playing like these video games, and they're getting blood drawn, seems every day, and just keeping an eye out on them.
So this is the point where this is what Emery said this as she was explaining things. I think to Hemlock is that led me to believe that Omega isn't necessarily force sensitive, because she basically said that Omega's blood was the binder that allowed the M counts to transfer, from one blood sample to the next, right? So it's maybe not necessarily that she has any M count herself. It's more that her blood allows the M count to be used effectively for what they're trying to do.
Yep.
So that's, again, that conversation led me to believe, and I wrote that down, like her blood is a binder.
Yeah. And I agree with your assessment there. My only question is what makes her blood different from others, which could throw in some other potential possibilities. Maybe she is still force sensitive, which allows her blood to be receptive to this. But I don't think that's it. I like you said, I think her blood is just receptive to it. She doesn't necessarily have a high M count.
I too love, by the way, I know I want to bring this up. The exposition for Asajj Ventress at the very beginning of the last episode, where she's basically like, yeah, those fucking Kaminoans made so many of you little fucking clones. I would guess that maybe one of you became force sensitive.
Right.
She kind of said that, like,
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, and it's true. If it's all about midichlorians and it's not like some preemptive designation from the force just happened to bounce into certain bodies, midichlorian count I'm sure ranges from clone to clone, so you would think one of them would have some high M count, but who knows. Through all of this you get the feeling that Emery starts to feel the same way that Nala Se feels.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's very, very intentional, the setup, and you can kind of see it from a mile away.
Yeah, because like the kid, says you can call me Eva, and then Hemlock's like, no, we don't get on, personal relations with the assets because that's all they are. They're just assets towards this project. So don't be forming attachments. But clearly she is. I mean, she even brought like a toy, the toy that Omega created, the little stuffed animal thing, brought it to like help the kid, and give it something to do. So, obviously Emery felt sorry for the kid. So I was trying to help him out. And we do get a scene where Emery does go to speak to Nala Se. And essentially they're like, Emery is like, these kids don't belong here. And then Nala Se is like, you're right, they don't belong here. So what are you going to do about it?
I did write down, and I put a exclamation point. Nala Se guilt trip, because she's like, Emery's like, well, I don't have any power to change anything. And okay, in my head, as Nala Se was saying this, I saw Stewie when he's like turning his head, because she said to her, "Oh, really? You don't?" She's like turning her head, like, because that's how she said it. She's like, "Oh, you don't have things." She was being sarcastic, like,
right.
So I thought that was funny, but I also wrote down before this. We'd be remiss to say that we got our Cad Bane sighting before that scene took place.
Yeah. So what is Cad Bane doing? How does he come in?
Well, he's stealing the baby, right, from the mom.
The opening scene from the opening scene.
And that stupid fucking robot. I'm not a babysitter. That was
I did it. It worked given the stuffed animal. Oh, I did it.
Yeah. I have a comment about something he said later in the episode that I'm really excited to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get the Cad Bane thing. That was standard procedure. He kidnaps the young, very young, force sensitive, high M count creature. Yep. And then after that, right? So after the Nala Se guilt trip, you had the Governor Tarkin scene.
Well, was that before or after the kid tried to escape?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was
because that was after that, right? The kid tried to escape.
Honestly, the kid trying to escape to me was so inconsequential that I mean, I guess it's somewhat consequential because then you see the mistreatment of the kid.
Yeah.
And then now Emery's starting to have her conscience or heartstrings tugged at. But I didn't even write that down. And it's hard to notate everything.
Yeah.
And to me,
well, I just looked at it as
that was like a softball. Like, yeah, the whole point of this episode, of course, it's called Identity Crisis, right? Is that Emery is now having an identity crisis on how she's been brought up through the Empire. She's been trained by the Empire. She's loyal to the Empire. Empire sucks. They're terrible. But this is another thing. I didn't write this down, but as part of my thought process is, I mean, really, the only difference between the Empire and the Jedi was the Jedi just guilt tripped the parents and giving you the kids, whereas the Empire is just like, well, fuck it, we'll just stun the parents and steal the kids.
Right.
Kind of the same thing, though. I mean, you're basically having the parents sell the kid off into slavery. That becomes a thing in a lot of the books that we read, right? Where the
Yep.
kids are like, I don't even remember my family. Like Anakin even talked about it a little bit in the prequel. So, um, whether you get the parents' permission or not, as the Empire seems to have forgotten to do, uh, kind of the same, same result as you're
Right. Yeah,
thinking.
because I think the Jedi look at it more as like a spiritual obligation. If they have a high force sensitive or high M count force sensitive, it's the obligation to bring balance towards the, or maybe not even balance, but support the light side and not have them fall into the dark side to join the Sith or whatever. But um yeah, the kid escaping, I just looked at it more as a vehicle to pull on Emery's heartstrings, because then you see, she promises Eva, oh, you'll see him tomorrow, he'll be okay, he's not in trouble. And then come to find out the kid does get in trouble and needs to stay secluded for like 48 hours or something, they said. And Eva is like, you lied to me. Like, you said he wasn't going to get in trouble. And then obviously that's pulling on Emery's emotions.
And you
So
get
then we get to the scene with Hemlock, where he's told by, is it Scorch, the trooper, that
yeah, Scorch.
Tarkin is calling. I thought this whole scene was really fascinating to me. So then Tarkin is talking to Hemlock and was like,
Nice, Ellie.
it's like, I was just informed that you're demanding like this large budget for the project you're working on. He's like, what's going on here? And Tarkin or Hemlock is essentially like, you don't need to know that. All you need to know or do is just give me the money. This is very personal to the Emperor, and we need that money to bring about the success of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, I wrote down Governor Tarkin was totes gels. He
Totes
was. He's
jelly.
like, oh, because now Hemlock's got the full resources of Palpatine.
Yeah. Well, and what I noted with this is it was very interesting getting, further insight of like the power struggle within the Empire. You're speaking of that jealousy. Like Tarkin is trying to make his way up the ranks too. Hemlock is doing the same thing. Obviously Tarkin makes it further because we see Tarkin
Yeah,
with
the
the Death Star in the original trilogy, and we don't get anything with Hemlock. So interesting, or curious to find out how this all plays out. And because Tarkin is he's a little sneaky because he took the credit from what's his face from Krennic from Rogue One, because that was all Krennic's project, and Tarkin was like, well, it's mine now. So
I just love the scene where like Vader is like choking Krennic and he's like, "Don't choke on your aspirations." I'm like, these motherfuckers are all choking on their aspirations. Like that's literally their, and honestly, that's the Sith way. Literally, the Sith way. The rule of two is like, eventually, your apprentice is going to kill you to take
right.
you. Like, so anyway, and then we have the next scene with Emery and Cad, right, where he delivers the very, and of course they wanted the very young uh M count sensitive creature because then it wouldn't like be a dick like you know the older one. And so Cad Bane says this, and because Emery was questioning him about like where'd you find
Yep.
what plans that you have on, how many of these have you captured, and this motherfucker said, I'm really good at what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Let's just say
oh,
I'm good at
you're
my
good at
job.
stealing babies from unarmed families. Good for you, Cad Bane. I was like, you fucking bitch. Like,
Well, I
oh yeah,
mean,
you open the door as a single mother and you
right.
shoot a stun gun.
Yep.
Any freaking, you know, shitty bounty hunter could have done that. So I just thought that was funny that he's like bragging about how good he is at the job. I'm like, the job's pretty easy, dude. Like,
Right.
um,
Well, I'm sure the complicated
call
part
him a
is
baby thief. That's what I called him. My
I'm
bad.
sure the complicated part is getting access to understanding which. Well, I guess he's getting tip-offs though,
Yeah.
meaning who's
Hey
force
man,
sensitive and who's not.
hey, come here. Here's the location.
Here's some credits.
Cool. Yeah, and he throws the credits at the guy.
Yeah.
It kind of
Or
reminded me of like Rick
that
James
weasel.
when he's throwing like call Halen, you know. Anyway,
um,
uh, that scene was I almost got kind of like I kind of rolled my eyes when he said that. I'm like, whatever, bro. And then I mean really the only last thing I have is, you can see where this is going, where Emery is starting to get a soft spot. She's starting to have an identity crisis, if you will. And
she
that's all I
sure
have to
is.
say
So
about
I wonder what's going to happen there. She's going to jump ship.
course.
Um,
So that's what I got for that.
yeah. So I did really enjoy this episode, and I I will say Star Wars plays a lot better when it's dark and intense like this. Like,
Yeah. 100%.
um, it feels a lot
It's not
deeper,
Disneyfied.
right? And they're doing a
Even though
lot
it
better
is.
job with the animation show or animated shows with this than they are with the live action shows, at least more recently. So,
I
like,
will give the shows a little bit. I'll give the shows a lot more leniency when it comes to like the kiddish stuff, right? Which we obviously have done with like Clone Wars when the stupid fucking robots. Like, I give those way more leniency instead of like the movies and stuff, right?
yeah,
But should we move on to episode
yeah.
11?
Yep. So episode 11. So this one's titled "Point of No Return." Um, Again, this one primarily takes place on Pabu, and it's essentially the Empire coming for Omega. So we
Well,
get to
how did the Empire find Omega?
we bring back the whole that shadow what do they call him? Clone X2? The
Shadow Troopers.
shadow dude?
You call them Shadow Troopers, don't they? Or Shadow Clones or something like that?
Shadow clone, but I think his name is Clone X2. I think that's his
I don't have
designation.
that anywhere, so I didn't wasn't
Um,
that.
but so he tracks Fee because he knows Fee is, or he caught wind that Fee is connected with
The Transdoshan, the Trandoshan.
yeah, the Trandoshan. So probably Sid, I'm assuming.
Sid. Yeah.
Sid's connected to Fee, which the Bad Batch worked with Sid, so they're figuring Fee's probably connected with the Bad Batch as well. So X2 finds where Fee is, infiltrates her ship while she's, docked and
And this is
doing
what I wrote down.
God knows what.
Okay, so she has a sensor when she's getting hacked, which sets an alarm off.
And the droid even hears it.
And he even hears it, unplugs the thing. And then, of course, she's conveniently in another room, so she can't hear it. So I have a couple instances of this beginning of this episode where I'm like, this is just too convenient. Like it's not how it would happen in real life. And I get it. It's fantasy. It takes me out of it when you have all these what I like to call um shoot, what's the
Fortunate circumstances.
yeah, like it just so happens that
Yeah.
the alarm goes off, she's in another room, the droid's a fucking incompetent piece of shit, right? It just so happens that when she's under the ship and she's gonna look for him because she heard something, that now the droid comes up to her and distracts her so he can get away.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's and this is where I wrote down that the name of the city was Pabu.
Yeah.
Of course she's developed. Anyway, now I don't want to like. I know we kind of have to hurry through this because know this is 3 episodes. So, obviously the guy steals the information. Also, it just so happens that he can decrypt things in seconds because he's like he puts it in oh, I've decrypted it. What? That
Well,
was easy.
is it tech? Do you think it
I
could
don't.
be tech?
I don't think it's tech.
It's someone like I wonder if it's like a clone of Tech or clone. He also gives a little bit of Crosshair vibes to me too. I
Well,
don't know if
okay. Actually, now that you mentioned this, I never even thought about this. But maybe this is some foreshadowing because remember she gives the girl uh uh
yeah, the
tech
goggles. Yeah,
goggles.
yeah,
And when the girl's like, "Do you really want to give these to me here?" Like, I don't. This
right.
is that's
That I was getting to that too.
okay. Sorry. So maybe that is foreshadowing. Or okay, maybe again, I would fucking hate that. I would fucking hate that if this is tech. I will give it two thumbs down. Tech should be dead, and we should
What if
move.
it's a clone of Tech though?
Okay, they're not going to do that though. That's going to muddy the waters. It's either going to be tech or it's not,
Right.
in my opinion. Right? But again, the timing. There's so many, moments in the episode where like the timing is just so convenient for the bad guys
Yeah.
to get what they need done.
I'm I'm worried they're gonna bring back Tech one way or another
I
because
am
of the
too.
whole
I know we talked about this in prior episodes. Like, just let them be dead.
right.
Because then maybe that foreshadows that again, how naive, absolutely naive Omega is later on in the episode. But then it's going to reward that because if it is Tech, then she's going to flip him, right? Like she's going to bring him back, like she did with uh Crosshair.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because we know the Empire found him because they had his goggles.
Yeah.
So we'll see. So yeah, so for the Bad Batch and Omega, what?
Who gave the goggles to them? Was it Crosshair?
No, wasn't it Hemlock?
Oh yeah, okay, you're
He
right.
gave it to Hunter as like an act of faith for handing over Omega or turning themselves in or something
Okay.
like
Yeah,
that.
okay. Yes, you're right. Um, so of course, guy gets coordinates, finds out where they're going, tells them to set up a standby crew. Or actually, I think at that point he says, "Yeah, fucking send in the troop." Well, no, he wanted to get visual confirmation
Yep.
before which I kind of like that. It's like, hey, don't waste the
Yep.
resources. Um,
Yeah.
I,
So the
I'm honest with you, man. There's a lot that bothered me in this episode.
well, that's fine. That's what we're here to talk about.
I mean, I know I feel I have been very negative these last couple episodes. But I hold the show to a bit of a higher standard, and I think they're kind of playing into way too many tropes. So here's another trope. So the guy, shadow trooper, shadow clone.
X2, we'll call him.
Yeah, so he parks in the same cave that Asajj parks,
Asajj was.
and then there's a scene where Hunter's like, "I have a bad feeling," and then they're saying goodbye to every fucking person on the island before they take off. It's so fucking stupid. Like, we have to go. He says we need to go, and then they're saying goodbye. They're handshaking. They're hugging every fucking inhabitant on the island. Are you fucking kidding me? It's so stupid. It's literally just them again. The convenience of the timing for the bad guys, where they're fucking herkle durkling, and my wife used that term.
I don't know if I've ever heard of Herkle Durkle, but
Dude, it's
might have to use it now.
It's a term. Apparently means like, instead of waking up, you're like on your phone, which I do all the time. It's how I
Yeah.
wake myself up. Is like I'll go on Twitter and so they're herkle fucking durkling before they get on the goddamn ship. It's
So
so
every morning when I'm looking at my phone, I'm Herkle Durkling.
that's what it's called. And of course Bennett loves it now, so he's like
Herkle Durkle. That's fair.
it's just so I hold the show to a higher standard because it's proven that it can tell better stories than this. It's so lazy. It is so lazy in the writing that you're doing this to give the bad guy all the advantages. I hate it. I think there's a smarter way to do it. So stop Herkle Durkle.
No more Herkle Durkling. Hashtag no more Herkle Durkling. Um,
This is also where I learned that Bachelor's a lady
Yep.
because he
It's the
said,
same thing. I learned that too. They might have referenced it before, but I never caught on until now.
I said in parentheses in the lady man voice, it's the lady.
It's a lady. But yeah, to what you were speaking to earlier. So with the crew, we first see them. They're getting ready to like they're packing up. Um, they're kind of paying homage to Tech because they're leaving behind some personal assets because they're like, this is the first place we felt home. So this is a way that, we'll come back. This is our promise to come back, leaving these tokens that are important to us.
Yes, let's leave evidence that we were here.
Right. Yeah, that is something I thought in my head. I'm like, that's not a good idea to leave something behind.
Because everybody will
If you're
find
kind
it.
of on the run.
You're gonna torture the people to get the information out of them, right?
Yeah. And you have people out there that know or in search of you that could trace you to here. So don't leave any breadcrumbs, but they do. They first they leave, Tech's goggles, and then they leave the doll, which looks exactly like the doll that she built.
Oh, this is another thing too. I forgot to mention. Asajj basically tells him in Harbinger, "Get the fuck off this rock. Like
Yeah.
you're not safe. You guys, I found you. You guys are morons."
Yeah.
And then they're Herkle Dirkling. Come on.
Yeah, and where's Crosshair on this one? Because he was the one that told Hunter that he needs to get her out of the last situation, and he didn't listen. So now Asajj is saying it, and they're not listening. Well, they are, but they're just being really damn slow. They're Herkle Dirkling here. So while they're doing all this, X2 locates them. He gets eyes on Omega, and then he shoots like detonators onto their ship, the Marauder. And that's how this all like transpires. He sets those off as Wrecker's loading. Wrecker sees and hears one, and he's like, "Oh shit!" Grabs Gonk and jumps and gets out of the way. They jump into the water and escape the explosion. But now the Marauder's gone, so I know that was one thing people were speculating about this season. And then you see the Empire arrive because they hear it and they look up, and sure enough, there's a Star Destroyer. I was happy to see
Not a Star Destroyer, Star Cruiser,
or Star Cruiser, but I was happy to see that they didn't just send two little troop transports. They brought the full force this time. They're not going to let them get away a second time. So, they essentially just take over the city.
I put Empire's gonna Empire.
Empire doing the Empire stuff.
Everybody.
Citizens running and screaming while they're all in formation, and then they go door to door, searching, ransacking, setting a fire, essentially trying to force out Omega and crew. And they were X2 was told, again, reminder: do not kill Omega. We need her alive. As for the other clones, if they get in the way, eliminate them. So,
Very convenient that Wrecker gets knocked out. He's out of the picture.
Yeah, he's unconscious, being tended to in one of the homes. I think it's the home of the mayor or whatever. To kind of make a long story short here, so they're searching. There's little skirmishes. So Hunter goes and tries. They make the plan like their ship is gone, so the only way they're getting out of here, because they're not letting anyone leave, and they're jamming all communication. So essentially, they have to take one of their ships.
Star.
They need to steal one of the Empire ships in order to get out of here. So Hunter goes off to try to get the ship. Crosshair's in charge of looking out for Omega, and Wrecker is still back being tended to. And Hunter does get a ship.
I wrote, and I like this part.
X2 taking out the pilot. That was
he's
pretty
not
sweet.
fucking around.
That was pretty sweet.
Because he's like, we're not stealing this ship.
Right. So right before Hunter's able to take it,
shot anymore. Oh,
what's that?
So at least somebody in the episode has a
So maybe it is a Crosshair clone because he's a sniper. So Tech wasn't a sniper. So right before Hunter's able to take over the ship,
Maybe it's an amalgamation of all of them.
yeah, maybe. X2 takes out the pilot. The ship goes crashing into the water. Hunter does survive. He's able to jump out and swim to shore. And then, meanwhile, while Crosshair is with Omega, Omega essentially comes up with the plan like, there's no way out of here. The only thing that we can do is I give myself up, find some way to have a tracker beacon on me, or shoot one onto the ship that they take me on, and then you guys come and find me because you want to know the location of Tantus anyway. This is a good way to find out where this place is, so we'll do it. Crosshair kind of resists at first, but then ultimately he gives in and agrees to the plan.
Of course. What we have to point out is the Empire is not as dumb as the good guys and immediately checks for trackers.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Not only like on Omega, right? But probably like on the ship itself too. So this is a dumb fucking plan. I wrote this down. This is a dumb fucking plan. It again is Omega's goody two shoes bullshit. And I'm getting kind of sick and tired of it. Who's like, just use me as bait and we can save the clones, and we haven't had any success figuring out where Tantus is. And literally that's what Crosshair said, is they're going to check you for trackers. And somehow she convinces a grown adult that this is a good plan. Anyway. And I'm kind of giving it away because of course a preteen clones plan fails miserably.
I have a point that I want to bring up when we get to the end that kind of speaks to this a little bit. So Omega ultimately does give herself up, and Hemlock and crew. Was it to Hemlock? No, it was to X2.
It was to the
X2. Hemlock's not there. So X2 clone, shadow clone dude. And they check for tracker or devices right away, locate it, get rid of it. And then he handcuffs her and takes her away. So Crosshair now is trying to follow them, but still be from a safe distance. He doesn't want to be detected, but he wants to follow them to find what ship is going to be fleeing or taking her so that he can set a tracking device on it. He gets spotted, It just
so happens he gets spotted.
Yeah, he gets spotted
long enough where he what happens?
So he sees the ship leaving, and he tries to shoot at it, but the tractor falls short and doesn't.
That was so sad.
It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
So ultimately, now she's taken with no tracking device. They have no idea where she's going. I'm sure they'll find out a way.
Of course. Hunter's gonna be so mad. He's gonna be so mad at Crosshair.
Did Wrecker ever wake back up? Did we ever see him wake back up? Okay, but we saw Hunter get back on the shore.
Yep.
And then, I think we just cut to the ship, and it's Omega there, and being taken away.
She takes off her hat, and she's like futzing with it. That led me to believe that maybe she did somehow sneak a tracker through.
That's what I was going to get to. Yeah. Do you think she has a tracker in her hat, or something of the sort?
It's either that, or now it sets Hunter on the warpath again, or maybe they implore, like, maybe this is where they get Asajj involved again, like, hey, we need your help. I don't know. Yeah. There's a lot of ways it can go. Like, she did, put a tracker, right? And that's what she's kind of doing, filtering with her hat. B, that she's force sensitive, so somehow like
connects with
Asajj, right? There's a foreshadowing with that. She's like, reach out.
Yep.
And then
that's the other thing I could see happening.
Yeah. And or another one that I didn't think of is like, maybe that is Tech, who is that clone. And they kind of set it up for that too, because right, these are clones that are basically repurposed, right? Retrained,
Yep.
brainwashed. So that would fit the description of what this could be. So maybe it's tech, and she finds out, and then she, of course, the power of love and healing. She's gonna get tech to help him.
And we'll see. We'll see which route they end up taking, but it is fun to speculate because I feel like there are multiple different angles that they could go with this right now. Whether
I'm just a
they're
little disappointed with the it just so happens kind of storytelling.
Yeah, I totally get that. Um, I think I give the animated shows a little more grace on that though. Um, but
I mean, I do too, right? Because they only have 20 minutes to tell the
yeah,
story.
that's the problem. That's the problem.
This build up, but when it's just so overt and
I would just say I would rather being that it's like 23 minutes long each episode, so you don't have much time. I would rather them go about it this way versus having all these like I'll use the term filler episodes to further elaborate on certain situations. Like, at least
I just don't know. Like,
we're moving the story along.
or hear me out. You don't do either, and you just tell a good story that's
Yeah.
coherent and
Yeah.
right. Like, you don't need the filler bullshit, and you don't need to like rush through the story either. You could just tell a good story that makes sense, that doesn't have a fucking million bunch of plot holes, or it just so happens kind of moments.
It would be nice if these episodes were longer. I will say, because like it's not like these are being released on Cartoon Network anymore or anything like that. You don't need to stick to a 23-minute time slot because you have a half an hour to work with commercials in there. Just go to 30-40 minute episodes at least. And I feel like you could probably create a better story and bring in some of these details a little better by doing that. But that's just me. So yeah, that's kind of how this episode ends and where we are with the stories. So I personally I really enjoyed episode 10, and I really did enjoy episode 11 as well. 9 was kind of 9 was cool because of Saj. Like you said, anything that she was talking about was really interesting, and I agree with that. But I not my favorite episodes with this season, but I still like it a lot better than some of the other stuff we've been getting overall with Star Wars as of recent. So I am enjoying season 3 as a whole right now and curious to see where this ends up. And I just have this feeling we're being set up for, disaster, meaning all going to be sad about what happens to all of our friends here, because it's given off that vibe, man. It's given off that vibe that we're going to be losing quite a few of these people that we've gotten to know over the last 3 seasons. And I'm curious which ones they would choose to pick off if that's going to happen. Because, now we've lost the Marauder. We, more or less we've lost Tech. We're going to lose someone else too. The only ones we know we're not losing are like Rex and Wolf and Gregor. But
Yeah.
maybe Cody will come back. That'd be cool to see Cody again. But anything else from your end with these episodes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to sound negative, but I just I do hold the show to a higher standard because it has been really good, and it will be sad to lose some of the characters, but not unexpected based on obviously what we know about the universe going forward. But yeah, I think I'll start, keeping more notes so I can.
Yeah. Makes for a great dialogue going back and forth. I loved it. So keep up with those notes. I enjoyed that conversation. One last thing I will say, which I noticed watching the show too, as disappointing to some as the episodes might be at times, one thing that you can't be disappointed about is the freaking graphics of this show. They had that scene where it was the space station
Yeah.
above Coruscant,
Yeah.
and oh my god, that was a thing of beauty. Like the graphics, man. You see the ships flying. If they didn't have the characters in there and it was like just these ships and kind of the scenes, you wouldn't be able to tell it's a freaking animated show. It looks just like, you know, CGI or digital effects that you would see in a live action show. So well done to the artists of this and bringing out quality content, and the music, the scores for it are really great. Like that dark music we got with episode 10 was just amazing and on point. So well done in those areas. So with that, I will kind of wrap it up. I'll speak to our social media handles. You can find us on Twitter at DetBlockAA23pod, on Instagram at detention_block_AA_23, our Facebook group and YouTube channels, Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. And you can now find us on TikTok at DetBlockAA23pod. So come bring us your likes, subscriptions, follows, downloads, reviews, any of it, all of it. We greatly appreciate it. It really helps us get our name out there amongst all the hundreds of Star Wars podcasts and channels out there. So any final thoughts for you, Dustin?
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of coming down to the last 4 episodes, right? So interesting to see what they do with. I don't think we can have any more like creature features or fillers, right? So everything.
No, it's game on the rest of the way. I think so, at least. And then it's going to lead us up right close to Acolyte. So we have about another month of this show. So you figure it'll bring us into early May, and then we're a month away then from the Acolyte show. So we're gonna have a lot of content coming up. And hopefully we'll get another trailer for Acolyte here pretty soon. I would imagine, May the 4th around that time might be a good drop for a trailer. So speaking to, we're gonna be doing that 5K or whatever run on May the 4th. So if we're signing up for it, so if you and Callie and the kids or anyone,
I run a 5K almost every day. So I mean, I'm not kidding.
Well, I believe you.
That's how I lost my bare gut.
Nice job. So yeah, if you want to join us,
I'm in. I'll even push Bennett around.
There you go. We'll probably dress up. So if you want to dress up, hey, good TikTok material. So might work out that way.
It's all about the TikTok. Yeah,
it's all about the TikTok.
I'll absolutely dress up. So I have to think about what be convenient to run in.
Yeah, and I've got plenty of stuff that you can share or that you can borrow too if you want. Stuff that's not as like hot and sweaty. But
it'd be funny, a funny concept. Did you ever see Reno 911?
I mean, I have seen Reno 911.
Like Lieutenant Dangle.
Yeah.
Like a officer, like Imperial officer version of his little.
So like wear short shorts or something like that.
Short shorts, and then like the top like vest part with the the cylinders and everything.
So just wear Imperial officer outfit with the short shorts, but then have like aviator glasses.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty funny.
I'll be called Lieutenant Dingle.
Lieutenant Dingle. Moff Dingle.
Dude, oh God, Moff Dingle. That's a good one. I can get the short shorts if you can give me the top part.
You would need a white outfit? Because if you're a Moff, you need a white cloak, and I don't know. We'll figure something out. Moff Dingle reporting for duty, sir.
That'd be so
buckle or whatever around. Yeah. Whatever term you mentioned earlier. But all right. Well, with that, we'll come to a close here. So thank you for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. And we look forward to bringing the next episode of Bad Batch to all of you next week. And it'll be one episode to review, so a little more time to talk through it. So, and as always, may the Force be with you. Also with the what? Brewers?
Oh, I said it.
Yes. Hey, we lost our first one today, though, so we're 4-1 now.
Fuck the Cardinals and their old Miles rotation.